Hello and welcome to this week's episode of For the Love of Chiropractic, 3 Keys of My Success. If you're one of our newer listeners, welcome to the show. Glad you're here. Glad you're joining our community of chiropractors from literally around the world. Also, if you're one of our long-term listeners, welcome back. Glad you're here and enjoying every one of these episodes that we get to bring to you. By the way, if you know a successful chiropractor that you think needs to be interviewed, whether it's yourself or somebody who's helped mentor you, and you think they should be interviewed on this podcast, reach out to me via the website, fortheloveofchiropractic.com, and I would love to speak to you and them to help more chiropractors become more successful all the time. On today's episode of Keys of My Success, part of the For Love of Chiropractic podcast series, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Josh Paxton. Dr. Paxton has had multiple businesses, and he believes in systems run those businesses. And he's on a mission to change the world. I hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed getting to record it. Hello and welcome to Secrets of My Success, part of For the Love of Chiropractic podcast series. On each episode, I'll be interviewing one highly successful doctor or business person, asking them what are their 3 keys of success or secrets they've used to make themselves so highly successful. So let's get started with today's show. So I have the pleasure of having on the phone with me today Dr. Josh Paxton. He joined us from his office. Josh, are you there?
I'm here, ready to party.
All right, fantastic. So thank you so much for making and taking the time to join me on the podcast. So let's start by telling everybody, so how many years have you been in practice?
We are about to round the bend on year number 15.
That is fantastic. And what was your path? How did you become a chiropractor?
My dad is a chiropractor. He just celebrated his 50th year and retired. My brother, my older brother, who's no longer with us, was also a chiropractor. So it was family business. But interestingly, I never considered it until I was an adult, a young adult, but an adult nonetheless. And I didn't feel like I was getting to minister at the level I wanted to. And then my dad encouraged me to go be a chiropractor. And here we are.
That's really cool. So when you got out of school, did you go straight into Dad's practice?
I'm sorry, you broke up. Say that one more time, Robert. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So when you got out of school, did you go straight into Dad's practice?
No, sir, I did not. My brother was an associate in my father's practice, and being the renegade in the family, I went straight out into practice on my own.
How did that work out?
Loaded question. Let me leave you with this. I vehemently, as I'm super involved at Life University and with their students, I vehemently advise against chiropractors going straight into business for themselves, unless they have years of previous business experience.
Okay, that's fair.
Running and owning businesses, and otherwise, I think you need to take some time and study under someone else on their dime. If that summarizes how that worked out for the first, in regard to the first few years of practice.
And by the way, I couldn't agree with you more. I think associateship is one of the most important things that young docs can do, because business is just too expensive. You don't want to waste time or money.
Agreed. And when we're talking about chiropractic students, Robert, we're talking about students that are graduating with $250,000 to $350,000 in student loans. That's, aggregating at 7% interest. And then business costs, startup costs they're incredible. So I think that there's such a value on taking a few years and learning not the science, the art, and the philosophy of chiropractic, but the practice of it, which school is not there, nor is it designed to teach you that.
No, of course not. Right. School. I believe that all of the schools should be designed, and for the vast most part, are designed to make you a doctor. How do you take care of people? How do you examine someone, do a history, figure out what needs to be done, and then begin doing that with them? It's not business school.
No, it's not. I mean, their job is, like I said, I was chairman of the alumni board and president of the Alumni Association, member of the board of trustees, and spent a lot of years at Life University getting to see behind the curtain. And I can tell you, according to their their charter for how they're charged with in the state of Georgia and with the accrediting agencies nationally. Their job is to make you a competent provider who is not a harm to the public, that has absolutely nothing to do with your ability to succeed in the business world of practice.
Oh, exactly. And from my connections with people like the National Board of Examiners, and as well as my state board, licensing boards and board certification, the words we used to use were measure minimal competency.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, you nail on the head, minimal competency.
Right.
And if that's all you learn, then you will be minimally successful,
right.
Minimally competent.
Sadly, yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so let's fast forward, because obviously you're not just one guy in one office, taking care of a handful of patients. Your business world is much broader than that. So please fill everybody in about all the things that you're doing.
Great. So I own a practice here, a multi-doctor practice here in Ringgold, Georgia, which is just below the Tennessee line. I co-manage with my father his practice, which was a 3-doctor, multi-doctor practice, and we just sold it to one of the associates. As like I said, he just came across his 50th year, so he's now retired. That practice was my late brother's, and then I took that over upon his death. And then I also have a commercial real estate business that I run, and I stay rather busy as well, serving on a number of different boards for a couple of 501c3s and humanitarian aid groups, and a number of those sorts of initiatives to try to give and serve and love.
That's really cool. And I promise we're going to circle back to some of that as we get to the end of our time together. But talking about the practices, your practice and your late brother and dad's practice that you just helped to sell and transition those. Tell me what makes your practice, and even the other practice, what makes it unique?
Well, I don't like my answer to this question, and I'll tell you why. Because I fear that it might come across pompous in some way, but I assure you, I mean no conceit when I say it. But the thing that makes ours unique, and what I would argue makes any practice unique in the practice of chiropractic, and superior, not only unique but superior, is that we are emphatically systems driven. I try my very best to leave personalities at the door, and not base my practice on my ability to be, to have tremendous spizzerictum or to just be a masterful adjuster. But we run our practice on systems, and that way it runs with me, and it runs just as good without me. Therefore, it is an actual business.
Exactly. And I know you as you and I were chatting just before we started recording. So, my time in practice, I had my one office that I sold to a fantastic doc, and I continue to work there. But over the years that I had owned it, over the decades that I owned it, one of the things that we did so strongly was we would bring in associate doctors and train them on all of the systems and procedures. And we were really, really good about having the patients not care what doctor they saw, because they knew they were going to be getting a great adjustment in a really good office.
That's the magic sauce. I mean, it literally, it's that simple, but as you know, boy, is that not easy.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot that goes into it. So systems and procedures, I'm curious, did you actually have an operations, or do you have an operations manual that, the book that you could thunk down on the desk? Okay, this is what we do. Or it's more, I don't mean on the fly, because I know it's incredibly regimented. Is it more like the oral law versus the written law? This is how we do it, and I'll teach you how we do it, but it's not written down. Which way have you done it?
Well, today is the day after Super Bowl Sunday. You watched the Phillies win yesterday. What's the likelihood that they won calling every play as an audible?
Highly unlikely.
You don't win Super Bowls calling audibles. Now, sometimes they're necessary, but in reality, they have a playbook that they have absolutely become masters of.
Yep.
And trick plays don't win Super Bowls. Fundamental plays win Super Bowls, right? They have those fundamentals down. Everything is written down. Everything is discussed. Everything is communicated. And we know when something happens via just a standard operating procedure, or perhaps a hand signal or some minute communication, this is the procedure for that. There's no, we'll make it up as we go.
Exactly. Okay. I love that. So, okay, if systems and procedures makes your practice unique, and I absolutely love that. Let's start transitioning into the really the meat of the podcast, which is as you're talking to docs and you think about, your success in business, what are your three keys of success that you want to share?
Three keys to success. Okay. Well, let's get started. I think three keys to success. Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. So I would say, depending on which side of the key that you're on for this, I would say, let's break it down this way. Let's go 10 years. If you've been in practice less than 10 years, get a mentor. Key number one, get a mentor. And you need to have a mentor that has basically two things. They have what you want, and they have a teaching spirit. They have what you want, because if I wanted, for example, to be on my, if I wanted to have a 70-year happy marriage and I go and hire a guy that's been divorced 7 times to be my marriage coach.
Not the experience, right? You're looking for.
Not the guy with the credentials that I'm looking for. So get somebody that has what you want. And then second of all, just because they're a good player doesn't make them a good coach. I mean, again, we're Super Bowl Sunday. Here's Monday. You look at these coaches. Most of these coaches were not necessarily the starting quarterback for the winning team, but they're exceptional coaches. And your ability to play the game has actually very little to do, I've found out, with your ability to coach someone else and their ability to play and win the game. So get someone that has somebody that has what you want. Number two, make sure that they have that coachable spirit, that they can clearly communicate to you what is necessary to win at getting what you want. Get a mentor. If you're under 10 years of practice, get a mentor. If you're over 10 years of practice, have a mentor and be a mentor. Because it's been said for 1,000 years, teacher learns the most. If you really want to know this stuff backwards and forward, teach it to someone else. Because if you have holes in your understanding of the execution of practice success, buddy, I'm telling you, nothing will illuminate it more quickly and more clearly than you attempting to teach it to someone else.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with that more.
So that would be number one. Get a mentor, and if you're over 10 years, get and be a mentor, because to whom much is given, much is expected. So if you have any level of practice success, the rest of us are counting on you to turn around and give that back to those in need of it.
Oh yeah, and there is no shortage of docs who are in need of it.
Yeah, so be the mentor you wish you had had.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Jay Hant, who practices in New York City, he used to always tell me when I was young, be the mentor you wish you had had. I used to complain about not having the mentor I wish I had had. And he says, well, just be the mentor you wish you had had. Right the wrong. So that's the goal now with having multi-doctor offices.
Amen. I love that. Okay, so if that's number one.
That's number one.
What's number two?
Number two is learn how to communicate. This is simple but not easy. Learn how to communicate. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. I grew up in a chiropractic home. Mm-hmm. We talk about ADIO. We talk about the safety pin cycle. We talk about the body needs no help, only no interference. I mean, we talk about all these great platitudes that I love dearly. I have some of them quite literally tattooed onto my body. They mean so much to me. Mm-hmm. However, they're not necessarily, they're chiro speak. We have our own language.
Sure.
And if you think that you're going to go out and you're going to quote unquote tell people the message, and you're going to take, your faith, you're going to take the bigness of the fellow within. You're going to take your green books down to the grocery store like a street preacher and, read from the green books. This is not going to move people, unfortunately. As much as I wish it would, because I get so fired up about that stuff, this is not going to move people. People that need a chiropractor don't necessarily want to be a chiropractor.
Right.
So, a lot of this communication that we learned in school, the message, what is chiropractic and who are we? This is for us, not for them. So you have to learn how to communicate. So I worked diligently with a great friend of mine, Dr. George Bernbach, whom I know you know. George is, speaking of mentors, George is one of my greatest mentors. George keeps trying to get me to mentor him on how to have beautiful hair, because I have beautiful hair.
And George is virtually shaved bald.
Yeah, he's shaved bald. So there's a limitation of time and matter for my chiro friends. There's a limitation of time and matter in George's case, unfortunately. But nonetheless, George and I we have refined and developed something that I wrote called the 6 stays of communication. And in my office, for all of my clinics, they are the 6 rules of communication that we make sure that we stay within. Because when you violate any one of these 6 stays, these are where you're going to start to get objections. These are going to start to get where you get disagreements and you start to get at odds with the patient on your paradigms and your worldviews. So communication is absolutely critical and vital. How do you communicate to a patient in a way they understand? I'll give you kind of a snippet. Look at features versus benefits. For example, if you might tell me that if you're selling me this car, that the feature is that it has 1,000 horsepower. I'm not a car guy. Let's say it has 1,000 horsepower. As a not a car guy, I don't know what that means. But if I were young and single and you told me that people who drive this car get a lot of chicks, then I'm in. Where do I sign? I'm in. That's a benefit, not a feature. So when you're talking about communicating the need for your care and the specialness, if you will, if that's a word of your care, things like staying out of feature talking and getting into benefit talking. How does this benefit me? I'm coaching a young lady right now who's starting up a healthcare business. She's a nurse doing a bunch of wonderful holistic procedures. And she sent me something just recently. We had this discussion. These are the physiological features of what this particular therapy does. But I don't understand as a layperson how these benefit me. So we rewrote them, and the results have been astronomical. So learn how to communicate. Communication is absolutely key, and you have to learn how to communicate like a normal human, not like a chiropractor.
Exactly. We know far too many doctors who like to say things like the nerve impingement in the intervertebral foramina.
Yeah, so we're going to adjust you from above, down, inside out and release the imprisoned impulse. Now, I know, Robert, you know what that means. I know what it means. It gives me all the feels and makes me tingle all over.
Absolutely.
I love that stuff. And I know that that's what's happening. But if you say that to someone on the street, I mean, you're an absolute kook if you talk like that. It doesn't make sense to the average public member.
Sadly, yes, you're correct.
And the reality is, and I'll caveat into this because this is one of my biggest passions, all of life is cells, as you know, Robert. All of life is cells. If you're a Christian, you might be selling Jesus. If you're married, you sold yourself. There's 7 billion people in this world, and then you sold your wife or your husband on, I'm the one you should choose.
Right.
If you have children, every night I have to sell my 3 sons on bedtime. Yeah. It's a sales process, right? It's a sales cycle I take them through. And so the reality is I know this ruffles feathers. People get so mad when you say, I'm not a salesman, I'm a chiropractor. I remember telling my preceptor that I'm not a salesman, I'm a chiropractor. That is absolute hogwash. You are selling chiropractic. And I'll tell you this emphatically, if you don't sell them on chiropractic, Big Pharma will sell them on medicine.
Oh,
don't
exactly. And for people who say, I'm not a salesman, right, I agree with you 100%. Everybody is a salesman. Right. I mean, right down to you're going to dinner with your wife. Where should we go to dinner tonight? You know what? The Italian place has that amazing pasta and that phenomenal Caesar salad. Guess what? I'm selling her on the restaurant.
That's a sales cycle.
Right. And it's just that simple. A salesperson is simply a person that has an idea that they want to share with somebody else.
Sure. And it should always be. And the difference between a salesperson and a manipulator is at the end of the sales cycle, if you read To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink, one of my absolute favorite works of all time, mandatory reading for everybody that works in any of my organizations, To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink, absolutely exceptional work. And the idea is the difference between sales and manipulation is quite simple. If I sell you something, Robert, and we both walk away from the deal improved and better and in a better position, that's sales.
Yes.
Manipulation is when the improvement is unilateral at the cost of the other side.
Exactly.
And I would never suggest, if you're selling true chiropractic the way I know it, never, ever, ever is that going to be a unilateral transaction. That is going to be for the betterment of both parties.
Right. When you understand what it is we truly do as chiropractors, it's a huge win-win. Oh,
it is a huge win-win. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Except Big Pharma.
Well, you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not looking out for them, I assure you.
Yeah, right. And if you watch the Super Bowl, they're doing just fine. there are a few commercials in there. All right. So yeah. we've talked about 2 of your 3 the big 3. What's the third one?
The third one goes back to one of the prior questions that you asked me, what makes us unique. The third one is to make sure that you keep your level of delivery of your service or product high. Systematize every single last detailed. Get away from the mom and pop on the fly stuff and systematize every single thing you do. And this, Robert, if you knew me well, you would understand how unique and odd this is to hear me say this, because I crave like impromptu. I crave diversity in my day. I love for things to shake up. So this has been a difficult one for me, quite frankly and transparently. This has been the most difficult of the three for me to master, even above communication, because I loathe monotony. Mm-hmm. But I realized that for the success that I wanted to create, monotony is the magic sauce. And again, it goes back to, we talk about winning, the Super Bowl by trick plays. I love trick plays because they're fun and nobody saw them coming, but unfortunately they don't win Super Bowls. You might raise an eyebrow every now and then with them, and someone may go, wow, Robert, you're super smart. Good for you. Pat yourself on the back. But if you want to create a thriving, sustainable business and success, lasting success in practice, you have to systematize this. My great friend and mentor, Dr. Noel Lloyd, Dr. Lloyd tells me all the time, he says, how many people work, in that office? I say 7 people. He goes, well, make it 8. And I go, well, who do I need to hire? He goes, you need to hire a system. Mm-hmm. He told me that when I first started working. Hire the system like the system is an employee on payroll and let them work there. And that way, when you're not there, who's running the place? The system is running the place.
Yeah, that is classic Noel Lloyd magic. He also
yes, it is.
He also taught me a long time ago why scripts are so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's specific,
which is a system.
Right, exactly. It's specific words that get shared with a person at the proper time. And people always say, well, I don't want to memorize scripts because, I want to be able to say what I want to say. The scripts free you to be able to communicate what needs to be communicated by giving you the words ahead of time.
So I tell all my associates, Robert, I tell them that scripts are better than brainwaves. And what I mean by that is that when you have a finite amount of brainwave that you have that you can dedicate to a patient,
right? You
do scripts so that your consciousness can 100% be present on the patient.
Exactly.
And the scripts become second nature. They're like a reflex. You hit that infrapatellar tendon, L4 fires off, and you get that knee extension, right? You don't have to think about that.
Right.
Those are the scripts, so that I can be 100%, as Jim Parker used to call it in Parker seminars, present time consciousness, PTC. Mm-hmm. You can be 100% PTC with the patient and give them the very best care.
Exactly. I would love to stay on this longer, but unfortunately our time is starting to run short. So I've got to jump to the next question, which, with all the things that you've done and seen, and your career is absolutely amazing, would you say to a young doc just getting out of school today, or a doc who's in practice but not as successful as they would like to be, is it still possible in today's world to become a huge success starting now?
To answer your question, is it still possible? The answer is emphatically absolutely.
Awesome. In that case, then I'm going to ask you just three last questions. How do you define business success?
Great business success. So I believe that businesses are a vehicle for you to altruistically change your world. I don't think any of us are going to change the world, but I know I can change my world, and you can change yours.
Sure.
And so the reality is that I want to leave my world around me better than I found it. And my business is just a tool through which I do that. And so business success to me, I don't necessarily have to look at that and say, well, that's $1 million of revenue, that's $10 million in revenue. I think that's very personal. And case by case basis. But the reality is that at the end of the day, when you're driving home, do you feel like that you made the difference that you were called to make when you got up today? And I think business success, because otherwise we're going to have to get really into the weeds on this if you want, but then you're only going to get my version of what I believe is business success. But at the end of the day, did your business change the world around you in the way that you thought it should have?
Which dovetails perfectly into my next question. How do you define personal success?
Great question. And my answer remains the same, right? Now, instead of talking about my community and my city, my town, my coworkers and my patients, and so my business constituents and clients, now we're talking in terms of personal success. Now we're talking about my wife and kids. Right? Personal success to me is about my personal well-being as an individual. Right? Am I happy and healthy? Healthy emotionally, healthy physically, healthy spiritually? Do I feel connected to my creator? Do I feel connected to my wife? Do I feel connected to my children? Do I fit well within my family unit? Am I giving it the attention that it deserves? And I think that, again, what you have to start out with a vision. What's your life vision? And then are you, every day when you go to sleep, are you one step closer to creating that? But again, you have to get really deep into the weeds per person on what those individual metrics we're going to track are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, so I've got to ask you one last question because I know, again, our time is running short, unfortunately. If somebody listens to this and they've really heard what you have to say and they're ready to throw down the gauntlet and say, okay, you know what? I'm ready to become successful. What's their first step?
The first step is to get, nothing drives success more than accountability. So the question is, to whom are you going to make yourself vulnerable enough to allow that person to hold you 100% emphatically accountable? Who is going to be able to look behind the curtain, look in your dirty underwear drawer, and give feedback?
Yeah.
Get a mentor, get an accountability partner.
I love that. And personally, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that is absolutely fantastic. Dr. Josh Paxton, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share all this wisdom information with me and everybody literally around the world. Thank you so much for taking the time and doing this interview.
Thank you for allowing me. It's a thrill. I think the world is absolutely crying out, screaming from the bottom of its lungs for more successful chiropractors.
And that's what we're both trying to make.
100%.
All right. And that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.